What's up, YouTube? It's time for another portfolio critique, and we are going to just jump right in to the portfolio of Shaul Wolf. So right off the bat, I mean, we have this big, yellow holding shape with some copy. So my guess is he's going to be a copywriter, but who knows? So a rabbi, a pen, and a dose of humor walk into a portfolio. What doth emerge? If your curiosity hasn't killed you yet, continue to scroll. If it has killed you, I apologize. I don't know if I can help. Clever, cool. Nice way to start off a book. There's a little bit of intrigue there. You're starting off your portfolio with a attitude, and I like that. So Shaul Wolf, copywriter, saw that coming. Let's go to your About section. So this is Mr. Shaul Wolf. A finely curated repository for all the weird workings of my brain. Custom dictates that I divulge some personal information on this page. A window of sorts into my messy mind. I like to buy books, and I like to read books. The amount of unread books on my shelf suggests I prefer the former. I spent 10 years of my life studying to be a rabbi. This history affords me the following. I can provide you with the perfect scriptural verse to stick it to a colleague. I'm kind of intrigued by your word choice and this kind of story that you're weaving and letting us know a little bit about you through your writing style as well. So the first thing I'd say right off the bat, I see that over here you have like all these kind of nice little thumbnails. This thumbnail is kind of lacking, especially it being the first thumbnail. It wouldn't like demand me to click on it, so maybe kind of spruce that up a little bit, make it pop. Much of our time is consumed with small talk, but we'd all prefer having conversations of substance if we only had what to talk about. Solution: find the places where people make small talk and teach them how to make some big talk. Where do people talk the most small talk? When they're waiting for things like trains, buses, and elevators. So the New York Times will teach them how to turn their small talk into big talk. How bad is the weather today? Small talk. How can we make sure it won't be a lot worse for our children? Big talk. All right, so this is kind of interesting. I am one who, I'm not a huge fan of small talk. I think, sometimes I get out of awkward situations by utilizing it, but I'm not a big fan. I think if someone asks me how the weather is or how my weekend is, I will say the weather is fine and my weekend was good. So I totally get where this is kind of playing off of, and New York Times is a paper that talks about the big issues. Or I shouldn't even say a paper anymore. The New York Times is a website. That's where most of their consumption is now. So they bring up the big issues and talk about them, and so it totally makes sense for the brand. How are things going at your new company? Small talk. How did your company still get away with paying men more than women? Big talk. So yeah, you're unleashing political issues. I like it. I like where you're taking it. You're doing it in the places where small talk takes place, which is also just a smart media placement. I'd work on your spacing and kerning here, not to break up the words so much. I think talk is like barely away from this gutter, where small is further away, and then you lose the eye on did, and then those is too far compared to shoes. So just work on your centering there on that placement. Yeah, interesting stuff. This case study stuff seems really long, and most creative directors probably won't get around to reading it. So whatever that cool stuff was up there, try to make it a little smaller. You're printing these conversation starters on the back of train tickets and stuff like that. Good insight, good idea. I would give this New York Times campaign a solid 7.5 out of 10. I'd work a little bit on the art direction. I know here you have this kind of faded back, but it doesn't really hint at what you're actually talking about. And I would actually bring it a little bit more forward. Don't drop the opacity too much to where you really can't see it. And then I would bring that same look and feel to these other pieces as well. I mean, especially just that black and white imagery is something that gives a nice nod to New York Times history as being a newspaper. And so, bring a little bit of that, look and feel into the overall campaign. I think it'll become a little bit more visually stimulating. But, good idea nonetheless, especially, you're a copywriter, so you're mostly judged on the copy and the idea. And that was there. So now we're moving to Starbucks VIA. Starbucks is synonymous with the cheery stores and well-designed packaging. How can they introduce VIA, their new line of instant coffee? Most people go to Starbucks on their way to work, but that means they're spending precious morning moments uncoffeed. Enter Starbucks VIA, your coffee before your morning coffee. All right, so if I'm being honest, I don't love the spots, and the only reason is because I've seen this many times before. That whole idea of leaving the apartment wearing the wrong shoes, leaving the apartment forgetting to put your pants on, like stuff like that has been found in advertising forever. So it just doesn't feel super fresh to me. Using the glasses sitting right on your nose to look for the glasses sitting right on your nose. I get all these moments. This is what I'd have to say to you. Really, this is just a coffee campaign. This whole idea of, being more sharp in the morning and stuff like that, that's selling coffee. That's not necessarily selling your instant Starbucks at home coffee. So I would challenge you to try to differentiate this campaign even more. Why could only Starbucks say this? And why does it have to be this Starbucks instant coffee? Why can't I just make a regular pot of coffee instead? And so that differentiator, I think, is where the campaign's still lacking. So I like that there's some thought there. I would just challenge you to push way deeper. It's also really hard to go after one of the biggest brands. So when you go after one of the biggest brands, you're competing with their advertising, and you really have to do something different and unique. They've never done anything like that. Like that would be cool and interesting. And so for those reasons, I would give this campaign in particular a 5.5 out of 10. All right, now we're gonna go to Ripple Pea Milk. The dairy lobby is trying to ban non-dairy milks from being labeled milk. How can Ripple create the case for pea milk to be called milk? You want udders? We'll give you udders, because peas have udders too. All right, we'll create a giant life-size pea that will be set up in public areas and allow people to try the product by milking its udders. So udder is a large pendulous organ, consists of 2 or more mammary glands enclosed in a common envelope and each provided with a single nipple. Okay, so we skipped on the mammary glands bit. Interesting. Peas have udders too. As you try them, don't scratch or irritate the teats. They are sensitive and she may jerk or try to kill you if you cause her pain. Kidding, they're peas. White and creamy, 8 times more protein than regular milk, delicious in cereal, smoothie, and nanas cookies. Looks like it's udder you're after. We've got those too. All right, man, so Ripple Pea Milk. It's honestly just a little strange for me. Typically, I like weird in advertising. It stands out. But here, I'm just not quite sure that it's hitting the mark yet. And so until you finesse this campaign, I would currently axe it from your book. I think the execution, especially from the installation, needs to really be refined and rethought out of how this would actually work, because these are very large nozzles. This guy right here could basically take a shower in it. And then these print ads are fine. This first one's pretty good. The other ones get kind of weird. So though I like this imagery of using the bottles as udders, I think that's the only real saving grace I have for this campaign currently. I would encourage you to keep pushing or just axe it. I just think you have other stronger stuff. So let's get on to the next one. Yankee Candle, my shit is lit. 80% of Yankee Candle business comes from 30 to 50-year-old homeowner mums. How can Yankee Candle talk to younger single shared apartments and the city folk as well? Young people aren't content with things being just mediocre. They want everything to be lit. Enter your shit. Help others lit their shit. Discover how your own shit is lit. Share your lit shit with the world. Wow, that is a tongue twister. So interesting concept overall. You're doing Yankee Candles. You have to light candles. It is very popular with a bunch of millennials today using the terminology lit to mean that is awesome. That shit is cray. My shit. My manager is in way over his head and he's taking it all out on our team. She could be a serial murderer. She's not answering because they confiscated her phone at federal prison. Their shit. My assignment is due tomorrow morning and I haven't started. You can use tonight to break your all-time most coffees in one night record. So I like the idea overall of, that mentality shift, right? You're basically saying, take your shitty situation and look at it in a new way to where it's a more positive thing. So the overall idea is very interesting. So what I would tell you first, axe it from the website. Very little people would actually go and try to use this on the website. I understand it's a very chat bot kind of thing, but I think if you really want Yankee Candle to stand out, you have Yankee Candle respond to people on Twitter. So Twitter is a place where people go. A lot of people go there to complain. I think Yelp reviews is also another place you could hit. So just look online of where people are complaining naturally and then respond from Yankee Candle. Maybe you tell them why their bad situation is a better situation on Twitter. Give that unsolicited advice and then, accompany that with a coupon or something to Yankee Candle and let your brand stand and shine as well. Because if I were to look at this right now, I'd say the my shit is lit thing is interesting, but I don't really see Yankee Candle in the forefront of this. I see this as a website that I can randomly go to and get this kind of experience, but I don't connect it to the brand. So make sure you're letting that brand shine. That brand is the hero. That brand is the star. I think the best way to do that is to do kind of like what Wendy's does on social media, and you go seek out, comments and you reply to them. So come up with those witty responses, but I think it's a really cool idea. Just move it to Twitter. Tweet. So these placements are starting to feel less cool than your previous one. I think your previous stuff is very organic and feels very authentic. It becomes too addy. The other thing I would think about as well is Yankee Candle has a ton of different scents. So is there a particular scent that can help in that situation? I don't know this, but maybe cherry blossom is a scent that relaxes people and calms them in very stressful situations. So if someone's studying for a test and is complaining about it, you can respond to them in a witty way and then accompany it with this kind of Yankee Candle cherry blossom is, what we recommend. Here's a coupon for that thing. Again, putting the brand at the forefront. So yeah, man, overall, I like the insight a lot. I think it's just where you execute it that's important here. So for the idea, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think once you decide kind of where to execute the idea and get a little bit more thoughtful on the strategy there, you can elevate this to another level. So nice work on this one, man. Good stuff. All right, so next we're going to Crocs. Crocs aren't dress shoes. You wouldn't wear them to work. They're not lounge shoes. People wear them outdoors. And they're not quite slippers. So what kind of shoes are they? Simple. They're not shoes. They're just extension of your feet. Crocs, feet extensions. Crocs, feet extensions. Crocs, feet extensions. All right, man, so I don't mind your insight. I think that if you're just a random Joe who just looks at this ad and it says Crocs feet extensions, you're not gonna get the insight that you talked about in the solution. I would also make the Crocs word mark, make sure it stands out on ads. This green kind of gets lost a little bit. The other thing I would say is these are 3 print ads, which is fine, but how can you push it? How can you make it a more 360-degree campaign, bring this Crocs thing out into the world, and go bigger with it. Just go bigger with it. When you stay to print, you limit yourself, throw on some Crocs, and go out into the world. For the insight and just really the lack of executions, I think you access for your book for now until you build it up to be a more 360-degree, full-fledged campaign. And so until then, I would give Crocs a 5 out of 10. I think there's definitely some promise here. So yeah, I would just encourage you to keep pushing and keep striving to make that portfolio better and better. Try to also include some long format copy. I think as a copywriter, it's important to show that you can write headline, subheads, and body copy. So maybe you come up with a campaign that has more long copy in it and it's kind of centered around that. And that way you can show some of that storytelling that you do so well in your About Me section. All right, so just going down the line really quick, I think the New York Times one has the most insight and the most promise. I think that is the best campaign in your book. Just work on the thumbnail for that. The Starbucks one feels like you're selling coffee, not necessarily selling this instant Starbucks product. So either change the brand to be just a coffee brand, maybe it's a less well-known coffee brand, or change your angle to be a little bit less expected. And then the Ripple Pea Milk stuff, just a little weird for me. So I'm just gonna leave it there. I would axe it from your book. I like your imagery of flipping the bottles upside down and using it as udders. I just don't think the rest of the campaign is doing that imagery any favors currently. The My Shit Is Lit stuff, I think, is a very smart idea and insight. I would just work on what is that media placement to make Yankee Candle the star and kind of own that space. Because I think it's an interesting twist. And now we have Crocs. I think this campaign is at its very early stages. So I would say it's not ready to hit the portfolio yet, but there is something there. So I would just encourage you to push to make something a little bit more groundbreaking. But overall, man, great start. I wish you the best of luck, and definitely let me know down the road if you make any changes to your book and you'd like me to further look at it. I would be happy to do so. So thank you so much, Shaul, for being brave and throwing your book up here on the channel. And to everyone else, if you have a little bit of bravery in you to share your work on the channel, be sure to send it to me and I will try my best to get to it. So that's Open Door Creative with another portfolio critique, signing off.